Okay, now we're live. Killing it already. There's 1 million people watching. No, just kidding.
I wish.
Well, you had a good week building up some followers, though. What did you say?
What the fuck did I just do?
Sorry, everyone watching. Hi, everyone watching. We're waiting on our two other guys. It's my bad starting late, so we're all discombobulated.
1 second, I can't hear you all of a sudden.
Okay.
I think my shit just fucked up.
It's just that kind of day today, everybody. Hex's stuff is messed up. I woke up crazy. How's everyone in the chat's weekend going? We got Gabriel and Kat. I don't know if Cass is here. You were typing earlier.
All right, here we go.
You hear me now? Can you hear me now? La 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 la. No?
Hold on. I don't know what the hell I just did. Give me a minute.
Okay.
What the fuck?
It's always something. It's always something technical. Randy, you were roasting some rando. Oh, that's how your weekend's been going, Randy, is you've been roasting people. Oh. That's funny. Oh, there's Sean. Yay! Got
Don't look
Sean
so happy.
Me? It's my Hex is having technical issues. My whole morning's been a fucking technical issue. But
yeah, it sounds about right. My life is a technical issue. So.
Yeah, it is. Damn, man. We got a lot to talk about.
Oh man.
Oh, hey, Alice in the chat. Well, Sean, do you want to like kind of just oh, we got JVP. What up?
How's it going? Does it sound okay?
Yeah, you sound good. Hex is having issues right now, but he'll hop back on in a minute.
Jeez, aren't you isn't Hex a sound engineer?
Yeah. Wait, did he heard that? All right. Everyone's weekend going good so far? Or I guess it's almost over now.
What's a weekend?
I
know,
all
kind of blends together.
Yeah.
It really
I'm
does.
lucky. I'm lucky if I know what day it is.
Hell yeah, and your life been so discombobulated that you're probably
it's a mess. It's a mess.
Do you want to kind of just share, Sean? Do you want to just share a little, like, I don't know, you can like tell the whole story to some extent if you want, and then where you're at now and what's going on now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an independent journalist. I was covering things in DC, Phoenix, elsewhere in the aftermath of the 2020 election. That path led me to the Capitol on January 6th. Obviously that was what it was, and we can probably get into some details about what I saw or what's been shown to be true since. But basically, 4 months after the fact or thereabouts, the DOJ decided that they were going to charge me with 4 federal misdemeanors. And so for the last year, I've kind of been dealing with that. It's almost right out a year because it was actually April Fool's Day of last year that they issued the warrant, which I always thought was kind of funny, and actually made a few jokes with the arresting special agents when all that came on. I said, well, is this just all a joke? Because, it was done on April Fool's. There was chuckles to be had, but it's not a joke. And, I face the potential of 3 years in prison if I was to be convicted on all charges. So, yeah, not particularly fun, but it is what it is. There was a lot of effort to try to find resolution in the case. But in the end, based on the language and the things that they were offering, it would have forced me to lie under oath and say that certain things were true that weren't true. And so, I'm in a situation where the only option for me, as a matter of principle, more than anything, is to go forward with trial.
Have they set a date for it yet, or anything like that?
No, they haven't set a date. I have a preliminary hearing on the 13th, so Wednesday of next week. So I'll be going in for the pre-trial hearing there, and then I'll probably find out more about when it's actually going to be scheduled or what I can look forward to on that.
And so there have been a couple other trials that have already happened for some of the people, and some things are going okay for some people, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting situation, where, with Judge McFadden, I think that he's infuriated certain people who are pushing, kind of the false narrative, which is demonstrably false at this point. But he's actually acquitted a guy named Matthew Martin, who was a defense contractor with Los Alamos National Laboratories. And he was from New Mexico, but he was acquitted on all 4 charges because what was shown during his trial in testimony under oath from Capitol Police was that people were let into the building.
Okay, yeah, okay. I remember.
Yeah, which even in my experiences, when I was there, it was, and like I say, I've said repeatedly throughout the course of the last year and a half, was that it was just a very bizarre day where there were absolutely instances where it felt like a riot, and there were other times where it felt like a guided tour. And it was just all very bizarre, with the police standing down and basically saying, yeah, everybody go on in. The water's warm. So it was a very bizarre day. I know a lot of people have said on the right, a lot of people have said, oh, it was Antifa that did this. They were the instigators. I've always kind of pushed back against that because I've never seen anything that leads me to believe that any real members of Antifa were involved in a lot of the instigation. One thing that I know from my sources in the intelligence community was that there were federal agents from all federal agencies present that day, as far as assets and everything else. And I think even a lot of the things we've seen in the aftermath have proven that. For instance, there's a guy, Bobby Powell, and I can send you links to his work at some point, and we're getting ready to release an article at stophate.com. But Bobby Powell recorded some very suspicious looking characters that had military communications equipment, and they were pulling the window out on the west side of the Capitol, and then they were encouraging people to climb through the window. Now, as of right now, those individuals still haven't been identified. Their pictures are not up on the FBI website associated with it, and we have no idea who they are. There's no charges being brought forth. And Bobby Powell's actually made the allegation, or he says, and I, he seems reasonable to me. He doesn't seem like a crazy person. Longtime journalist who was recording it, and he said that I got to look at the notes. There was a guy, Kerry Bentivolio, who was a former Michigan congressman, who approached him in late 2021 and basically told him, look, we're willing to give you $200,000 to suppress your video and to stop talking about it. And he didn't. Bobby Powell basically told him to kick rocks, at which point, and this is all according to him, but the quote was, stop talking about the video or you could be killed. Now, 6 weeks later, after he turned them down, a guy named Garrett James Smith went to a rally down in Florida that was being held for Green Beret Jeremy Brown, who's been held in jail ever since he got picked up for misdemeanor trespassing charges. And he has video of the FBI coming to him and asking him to be an informant, and he turned them down. So then they charged him, and he never even went into the building. So anyways, this Garrett James Smith guy, who's kind of like this kind of Antifa, for lack of a better word, they all look like crackheads on some level, but from Portland, and he went there with a pipe bomb full of nails, went to that rally where Bobby Powell was speaking. Pinellas County Sheriff ended up picking him up. Like, he got spooked and ran away. They chased him down, found him. He had, you know, the pipe bomb in his backpack. They sent it over to Pinellas County Bomb Squad. They looked at it, said, yeah, there was nails. It's a pipe bomb. Just a few weeks later, after that, the Department of Justice took over the case, the FBI, and so the ATF then said, no, it was just a novelty item, and they dropped all charges on this guy.
That's the supposedly Antifa guy.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to say, it's just, again, the coincidences are starting to add up. Where you have a guy who's an independent journalist, and he's obviously putting out information that completely laughs in the face of, you know, the DOJ narrative and everything they've said, and then you have this happen with a pipe bomb. It's bizarre. And even when you go back to everything else that's happened, when they've tried to push this narrative and say, well, the buildings were all evacuated because of the mob that was outside and everybody that was protesting. But we know from testimony that that's not the case, because former Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sun confirmed in front of a joint session of Congress that the reason they evacuated Congress was because of the pipe bomb. You know, there was the guy that placed it, and that was a big story, and all of that's been pushed under the rug, and just,
They
you know,
had
there's
video
nothing
of
going
it,
on there.
supposedly, didn't
Sure.
they?
And they've done nothing,
Nothing.
which is bizarre, because they've been able to track down all of these different people who were there based off of their cell phones. And we've seen the video of the guy that planted the pipe bomb walking around with a cell phone. And you're telling me you guys haven't been able to ping that and figure out where that was? You know, for people who don't know, I mean, DC, there's 5G towers everywhere. They know exactly where your phone is at any given time. They've used that evidence against a lot of, you know, J6ers, you know, coming out and saying, well, we know your phone was here. And they've used that to place them at the Capitol. But for whatever reason, they can't find this pipe bomber who was suspect number one, you know, on January 7th.
Yeah.
So it's a giant mess. And I think, you know, that we just got to keep speaking truth, and it is what it is. I mean, a lot of us that were there, we know what we saw. And there's a few journalists who are corporately controlled that have pushed this narrative. I mean, and I don't know for a fact, but I never heard anybody call Officer Harry Dunn the N-word. And it's my opinion that if they had that video, it would be leaked all over the place. So you just see this huge event that, you know, a year and a half later completely looks like a false flag. I mean, even when I was there, it was so much in the moment that you don't really think about it, you know, and over the course of a year, you start looking back at all this information and pairing with what you saw as someone who was there. And it, you know, it becomes undeniable that what we're looking at is a false flag.
Well, yeah. And it sucks because, like, the way the media, I mean, they're still fucking talking about it like it was this whole fucking thing. So you're fighting, not only are you fighting against, you know, the government in this court and trial, you have to fight against all that shit the whole time. And all of us are like, how can anyone believe this shit? It was all like, it just seems so obviously fake from the very beginning. Even the fact that they, like, with the whole Ashley Babbitt thing, like, right after George Floyd riots, and then an unarmed Americans killed by a cop, but that was okay. You know,
yeah, and that's, you know, that's horrible. I've spoken with Ashley's mother about all of that, and her husband. I went and covered. They did a memorial for her in Texas, and it's just awful what they've gone through in that situation. I mean, and you see the argument from people, you know, mostly on the left, and they say, oh, well, she deserved what she got that day and everything else. And we can sit here and we can go back and forth about that. But in the end, she didn't deserve to die that day. No. And now, you know, we learned that there were other individuals who were killed. I mean, they pushed the false narrative with Roseanne Boyland that she was high on meth, which has been proven by toxicology reports to be untrue. But you will still see the legacy corporate media run around and say, oh, she was on meth, when we have video of her being beaten to death by Capitol Police. You know, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. And even myself, because by the time I had gotten to the building, all of the barricades or any of that stuff was long gone. So I can't speak personally to what happened ahead of that, although we've seen video in the aftermath. And you know, you start digging through the evidence, and it's like, you know, I don't know what people are supposed to do when they see someone being murdered in front of them. I don't know what the proper behavior is at that point. I can't say. You know, I know in people who've seen my video from the rotunda, you can see a woman who is about to get crushed by everyone, And I'm pushing back at the cops and saying, you know, for the love of God, stop it. You know, this woman's going to die. And I spent, you know, months afterwards not knowing if that woman had been killed, because she was completely passed out in the floor, and you just don't know. And so you wait months and months to figure it out. I saw Capitol Police shove a man off the top of the stairs, and the way he hit the ground, I assumed he was dead, but it turns out he survived as well. I mean, he hit the ground right in front of me. So it's just, you know, it's not what the media would have you believe. Because again, the other thing that they don't take into consideration, and something that I'm well aware of for months of basically trailing around with Proud Boys and following them through the streets of DC and all the battles that were going on there, was that there was a lot of things being done by DC Mayor Muriel Bowser to just cause conflict. You know, giving orders to Metro PD to basically herd Trump supporters into BLM Plaza. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. And then you go, oh, well, it got violent. Well, you know, when you have people that are attacking families on their way back to their hotel, I don't know. Again, what is the appropriate response to that when the authorities aren't doing anything? We now know that they turned down any of the requests from the Trump administration to put National Guard around the Capitol on January 6th. Why would they do that? That was Nancy Pelosi's call. Why did she do that? And these are, you know, the J6 committee that's going off right now, they can say whatever they want, but it's just a bunch of crap. It's partisan bullshit. And I'm not a partisan. So it's like me looking at all of it, it's just, you know, it's just frankly disgusting. And of course, I'm wrapped up in it. And a lot of people would advise me to not talk about it. But again, my attitude is I'm doing this for my children. We cannot sit here and continue to be false flagged by our government, because they use it to come after people's rights. They've used it to lie us into wars like Iraq. At some point, we have to end this. We are being manipulated by our own government, and they're weaponizing it against Americans. I don't have to agree with anything anybody says, but that's what this country is about, is you speak freely. You have the right to do so. And you have the right to peaceably assemble for redress of grievances. Either the Constitution is meaningful to us or it is not. Either we're living in America or we're not. But we've reached a point in this country where we can't fiddle about with this anymore. Sorry, ranting.
No, I love it. I love it. No, it's and just like if the Constitution was supposed to like protect us from the government, well, when they're asking the FBI directly about their involvement, and they just say, "Well, I can't answer. So there was no protection for us at all. Like, it's like they don't even have. They're literally like a terrorist organization. They're all the money they want. They have all the, you know, tech and everything they want, and they don't have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
They like don't have to answer to anybody.
Well, and that's even further on that is now you have the Department of Justice saying they're looking to charge 2,000 to 3,000 more people.
From that day?
From that day.
Oh my God. Don't they have anything fucking better?
No, they don't. And they're moving forward. They want 130 new personnel, and they want $34 million. You know, and this is the thing for a guy like me who's basically gone broke and lost my business as a result of all this crap, is that it's like, okay, well, I only have the resources I have to move forward. And I wish that I had a team of lawyers working day and night, but I don't. Guys don't. And there are people with far worse circumstance than myself. Joe Biggs, for instance, he's he has 2 Purple Hearts. He's given everything for this country. And they have him locked up like a dog, and he did nothing violent that day. Now they're going to push forward with these conspiracy charges. And if I'm being honest, looking through the indictments, there's probably a certain amount of it that will be proven in court. But it's a bizarre situation, especially with Proud Boys. And we know that there were connections between Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 3 Percenters, and all these other groups, that they had connections with the FBI. So how much of that is going to turn into just being another case of entrapment by the FBI, like we saw in the Whitmer kidnapping case? They couldn't get a single conviction out of the 4 that brought forward. They had 2 hung juries and 2 all-out acquittals in that case. And they pushed that and pushed that and pushed that. And of incidents, the guy who ran that operation, Stephen D'Antonio, okay, he got promoted on October 13th of 2020, right after they brought arrests in that case. He got promoted to be the head of the Washington, D.C.
They're like, oh, you did a good job. Then
Great job with the false flag. We're going to need you to do another one. Like, how are we not supposed to assume that that's what was going on there? It's a corrupt organization, and we've got to start calling on good people that are within those agencies, because I know they exist, but they have got to start coming forward and calling out that bureau for what it is. And it's become corrupted. You know, even in the intelligence agencies, and I know that from my sources, is there's basically been a war going on for years between your establishment and deep state and everybody else. See, I get all excited.
They're on to you.
But I know. We're surprised the stream is still going.
I know. Well, I was like, because I know that one when you talked to Justin, that got taken down.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I think I'm too small. Whatever. I think we'll be fine. Oh, and someone at your YouTube got taken down too, right,
yeah,
Sean?
Yeah. I mean, I've faced all that. I mean, one of the first things that happened after the charges came forward was the Department of Justice seized my Facebook account, which is, as you know, was where most of my following was. They seized my Facebook account. They seized my Instagram, and I have still not been able to get those back. I have asked the Department of Justice and the U.S. attorney who's prosecuting my case, like, you know, where is that stuff? And yeah, they just act like it never happened, but we know that that's what happened. So it's like there's been censorship on that level, trying to silence people. And even, you know, talking about our fundraisers, you know, and we had Give, Send, Go links, and they were being taken down. People were being banned for posting them. So it's this really horrible situation where we're just watching Americans be silenced, and people who are interested in telling the truth be silenced. And people have got to get more active in fighting back against that, because it's not getting any better. There's no amount of capitulation that's going to make it better.
No, because acting how we are now is how they've gotten that far. Like, why they could just keep doing it and do it. Didn't you know? I never followed up for, like, there was those two guys who approached that Ray Epps guy, like at his, and then they got raided by the FBI eventually.
Yeah, they've had all sorts of problems. I mean, Micaiah Jackson, he's kind of an interesting guy. Again, he kind of, in my opinion, somewhat extreme in some of his viewpoints, but again, that's his prerogative. And you can't argue with the video. There was a guy, Luke Robinson, who had a gun on him at the Capitol, and he's never been charged either. So what are his connections? I mean, Ray Epps, another interesting case where he was right up at the front when the barriers were broken, whispering things into a man called Ryan Samsel's ear. Again, never charged. He was in Black Lives Matter Plaza on January 5th, and I was there as well. But again, I don't have access to the video I took there. And he was telling everyone, we need to go into the Capitol. And there is video of him saying this. But, you know, he's saying, oh, everybody needs to go into the Capitol tomorrow. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So again, at what point, if we call it a riot, which is even difficult because it was never declared a riot. I mean, anybody who's covered kind of protests and things like that know that when the cops come out in the riot gear and you hear it over loudspeakers and they say, this has been declared a riot, disperse immediately. Yeah, but that never happened at the Capitol. And I guarantee if they had gone over the public intercom, they could have probably stopped it. But again, it seems like there were people involved that didn't want to stop it. And I think they wanted it to be a lot worse. I think at some point they wanted to put both protesters and police into a situation where a lot of lead started getting chucked at each other, and it would have been a bloodbath.
Yeah, they probably did want it to be worse. The fucks. You know it. They probably wanted, I wonder if, like, some of the lower level Capitol Police just weren't in on it because they're just lower level. But
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, if you study any of these operations, you know that people don't really have to know what their role is. I think there's a certain history of contacting people who are mentally weak as well and making them think things that aren't true. I think we saw a lot of that psyop at play with the whole QAnon bullshit. You saw a lot of people get sucked into it because they wanted something to be true. And even prior to me walking to the Capitol that day, I was actually waiting to use the bathroom, which is a whole other story because it was disgusting. But there were people in line and they were saying, oh, JFK Jr. is going to show up today. And I remember just thinking and looking at them like, no, I don't think that's going to happen. And this is disturbing. So it's a sad state of the world, but we've seen it with COVID and everything else, just the way people are so susceptible to manipulation by the media. I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence that the Bernays family is involved in Netflix.
Oh yeah, that's probably a good rabbit hole to go down, huh?
Oh, the rabbit holes are endless.
How do you? So, Sean, when the Empire has you in their crosshairs, how do you mentally prepare to fight that? Because that would I've been lucky enough to never really have been into any legitimate legal trouble, just some minor stuff, when you're young. But it's got to be stressful for anybody.
I mean, it's immensely stressful. It's interesting where I ended up having to sell my house. And, I lost my plumbing business, which actually was the majority of my income as I transitioned into being a journalist. But having pretty much lost everything at this point and doing this podcast out of my son's bedroom at his grandparents' house while I live in a camper trailer, it's kind of freeing in a lot of ways. I don't have much to lose. They've pretty much destroyed my life already. So, let's be honest. What more can be done to me? I suppose they could take me away from my children. I've spoken with them at length. And my boys know the reasons why I do what I do. They know that I don't want to watch them grow up in a country that treats its citizens the way we've seen citizens be treated. And so, it's not fun, but it is what it is. I didn't get into journalism so that I could feed lies, and as Forrest Mommy knows, I started off writing satire and doing fake news. So if there's one thing I know how to spot, it's fake news. So I mean, mental preparation. Honestly, it's funny where I was not a particularly religious person for a lot of years, and I'm still not. I tend to question everything, but I have found it interesting in my own life how this entire process has really rekindled for me a faith in God and learning to rely on something greater than myself. So,
but it's so crazy how when we first met on Facebook, just fucking around, like I feel like we've grown, like it's been a century since then, I'm so glad you found me again, or like we reconnected on Twitter.
No, it's huge. It's wild to watch you kind of grow from what you were, and so. But that's life. I mean, people change, and it's interesting. My political attitude has not changed much over the years.
Right.
And it does feel as though I've kind of watched the world rotate around me, where I used to actually get along with a lot of people on the left, because typically I'm more left on social and economic issues. But they've pretty much abandoned me and are quick to call me an insurrectionist and every other dirty word they can come up with. So it's been interesting watching the way things change in this country as the media, continues to pit us all against each other.
There seems to be a glee too of certain people enjoy watching other people's lives get ruined, which is like the most disgusting part to me.
Yeah.
And I'm 38, so I kind of grew up in a different time before the internet was the real world, which most people perceive today. And I had a big family, a lot of family friends. We would always have disagreements. People came from different backgrounds, cultures, different political views. Maybe there was an argument here or there, but it never tore anybody apart. We always kind of had each other's back, and that is definitely missing from today.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that's something we need to get back. I don't like the way, naturally you're going to have memes and people are going to kind of run through that anytime somebody's hurting or somebody's been killed by police and they think that it was justified or whatever. But it's like one of the things that I kind of always think back to is like the whole situation with George Floyd. It should have never happened. That situation should have never happened. We can argue about whether he died from a fentanyl overdose or whatever. But in the end, it's just this horrible situation in our country. And we've allowed it as a society to the point where the media can then take that and manipulate those stories however they want to make people think all sorts of bullshit. Yeah, so I think a lot of it is that we do need to understand that as we get divided, we will fall. And we're not in a good situation as a country right now. And if people think that there's just going to be some sort of a national divorce, and people who are more libertarian thinking go to libertarian states, people who are more red go to red states, blue to blue states, and it's all going to be happy-go-lucky, that's a very, very naive view of the world. Because Russia and China right now are just waiting to come in and pick up the pieces.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm a very black-pilled individual.
No,
I don't have very much hope, and I always reference back to the whole Lord of the Rings thing, where Pippin's asking Gandalf, "Oh, Gandalf, is there any hope?" Yeah, there's never been any hope. It's a fool's hope.
How can you not be black-pilled too after just everything that's fucking happened, man? And then when you've been in the thick of it, like. So when they first came to you, they took all your videos and stuff. Is that what you said?
No, they seized it.
Okay.
Electronically. So Facebook shut down my accounts, Instagram shut down my accounts, which that's where the majority of all of my live stream video was kind of housed at the time. I hadn't gone back through and downloaded and done all the stuff that I should have done. Lesson learned. And so they were able to seize all of that material, all my private messages, everything else. And so far, I haven't seen anything come forward with that, even though, and I don't know where that would go, because in my opinion, I had lots of confidential information in there that came from whistleblowers and other individuals. And it's like, for them to seize that and then go through those messages, that's disturbing in and of itself.
It's like an admission of guilt on their part. Like, to me, like, if you want to take I understand, like, they need this for more evidence, but it's like,
mm-hmm.
You don't just do that.
Yeah,
if you're innocent.
For misdemeanors at best. And that's the thing, is that it's like, even in conversations with different people within the FBI, is they're always like, we don't even know how to deal with a misdemeanor. We don't do misdemeanors. But now we're in a situation where we're looking at potentially 3,000 Americans being charged with misdemeanors. To what end? What purpose? What is the purpose of that, if not to stifle free speech?
And just because it went to a public building, like, regardless if you believe it was wrong to break in or not or whatever, like, this is a public fucking building. It's the government. Like, who the fuck do they think they are that they can just do this to people all because they went on the holy ground? And it's like such a obvious picture that anyone on any side should see, that like this government is out of control. If they're less freaked out about that, like, it just makes no sense to me.
Well, and that's where the compliance comes back in. It's just like with vaccine mandates or any of these other measures that are coming forward as part of this entire Build Back Better, Great Reset agenda. You cannot comply with this. Every act of compliance emboldens them to do more. And we've seen that over the course of almost 3 years now. They're not going to slow down. They might pull back a little bit. They'll say, oh, okay, well, you guys are getting upset. We'll pull back with the vaccine mandates. But then you wait a month or two later and they come back with it. And that's just classical conditioning. That's all it is. It's a psychological tactic. They're preparing everyone in this country to become subjugated and then exterminated. They say, how many times do they have to say this stuff publicly before people are going to listen? They want to kill people. They've been killing people for years. They want to move forward with depopulation. These are their words, not ours. So it's just the amount of gaslighting is absurd. And that's, people got to wake up to it. And I don't know. I don't know if they will. But, they have to.
Man, I don't know.
It's a hell of a story.
It is. Jeez. It's been quite the year.
I hope your rise is greater than your fall, and I don't know, just kind of, I try and I value wisdom more than intelligence at this point in my life, and just trying to think a bit forward. When your kids grow and kind of remember the story that you just told us, I think that'll give them great strength to fight their own battles. So I think it'll pay off for you in the end.
Yeah, I sure hope so, because I love them, even though they're gross and they're teenagers.
And they're your kids, so come on.
I'm in my oldest room right now, and it really smells like him.
Justin's in the chat. Looks like they said they lifted the strike for letting you speak. Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah, I mean it's bizarre watching how much censorship there is. It's
is your other do you guys still have the Odyssey channel for the?
Yeah, it's up. I mean, we've been on extended hiatus. I mean, part of the problem is that I haven't been in a particularly good situation to really do the production that we like to do for a nightly show.
Hey, you guys do a good job. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if when that may come back. We've talked about a few different things we could do there. You know, and of course I'm writing for local newspapers here and just doing whatever I can to try to scrum up money at this point. So hit my Cash App.
Yeah, it's shot. It's you have the tips on your Twitter is on, right?
Yeah.
And then
whatever. I just have the Cash App link posted. There's a Give, Send, Go people can look up. That's Witzman Family Fund. If you can figure out how to spell my last name,
I'll pop it in the description afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, anything people can do to help is beyond appreciated for sure. I'm in a situation where I don't have much option but to do what I do. You know, continuing forward with the trial leaves me, you know, with writing and continuing to tell the truth about this, you know, and obviously looking for other freelance positions. So that's what I do full time. People can go to stophate.com. I'm doing work there. Sometimes my name's on it. Sometimes it's collaborative between the entire group there. And there's been some really good work done with Taylor Hansen, who's worked there, JD Rivera, and other people who are very knowledgeable about everything that's gone on. So I really encourage people to go to stophate.com.
Did JD have a charge against him too?
Yeah, JD has the exact same charges with me, and he's also moving forward to trial.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's funny where, you know, having met him, I love that man so much. He's been a huge inspiration to me, keeping me strong and knowing that we know the truth of that day, no matter what's being said in the media, and hoping that truth in the end will prevail. That's the only thing that really keeps both of us going on some level. You know, luckily he's a Marine, so he has all the training to persevere. I get to just learn from him as a degenerate civvy. So yeah,
Man.
there's the update.
I'm glad you came on to share. Yeah, when I saw you post that you were going through to trial, which I mean I've heard that before, because they give these plea deals and you're like, well, I didn't fucking do it, you know. Yeah. And they like force your hand and force you to basically take it.
Yeah. And in my opinion, again, you know, there was plenty within the language of the plea deal that was just an outright lie. And the problem is that if you take a plea deal and you go into court and you say, yes, this is based in fact, but it wasn't, you've essentially perjured yourself. And we've seen a lot of complaints coming back from certain plea deals where people, you know, went forward with the plea deal and then they went on news, you know, with whatever, and then contradicted the plea deal. And theoretically, they could be brought up on perjury charges later. We haven't seen that happen, but it's just, again, it's not the way to go. I mean, if my job is to go out and give people the best representation of truth that I can, then this is just a part of that as well. So it is what it is.
It's heavy. How's your weekend, Hex?
First of all, can you hear me? I think I got my shit sorted out.
Right, yeah, you sound good.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to process with your situation and that day in general, which is why I've been kind of silent throughout your talking, because it's like, holy shit, there's a lot that I didn't know. And
Yeah.
But I admire your perseverance. Perseverance for sticking through this. The, I guess, deep state, I'm gonna refer to it as, they have like a million and one ways to screw someone over if they really wanted to.
Yeah.
And I know that can be demoralizing, but
Yeah, I mean, it's like I've said earlier, at this point they've pretty much succeeded in destroying my life as it was,
right.
So I miss my pool. It's funny where you get to a certain point in life and you think, well, I'm kind of, semi-retired with my one business and I can go do this. But I guess that wasn't God's plan for me. So here I am.
From the Denver and Farmington Tribune to fucking lost everything and Jesus Christ.
But again, what do people want? That's the history of the world. It's never been this situation where everything was perfect and rainbows and butterflies and freedom. And
that's the outlier. Like that's outlier.
Yeah, I mean, the history of the world is subjugation, pain, and death, and slavery. And the only way to push back against that is people power. So, again, I just encourage people in whatever small ways they can to live freely.
I'm trying.
Yeah, at this point, it's the only way.
While we still can.
Forward.
Yeah, I'm basically speechless after that story. Just it's just so much there to unpack, because there's so many details that we've heard about over the last year of January 6th, and I don't know. I kind of agree with Dave Smith on this one, where he didn't necessarily say this, but to sum it up, if somebody's looking to shoot you, don't hand them a loaded gun, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
But at the same time, you can see just how it was twisted. That hearing where Ted Cruz went after that FBI agent was pretty incredible too.
Yeah.
They just wouldn't. I mean, you kind of going in expected them not to say anything, but just when you watch it live unfold, you're like, well, they're not going to tell you anything.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I think you'll continue to see. But again, there's pushback, and with everybody who continues to push back, I think more truth comes out, and eventually it will be undeniable. And hopefully we can save this country before it really just plummets off the edge of a cliff.
And
I just hope it does.
Oh, go
ahead.
Go ahead.
Mom, you go first.
No, you've been silent the whole time.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. I just hope that truth doesn't come out like 10 years later when no one cares. I just hope it's a lot sooner than that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I think, when I think back to when I was, 18, 19 years old, blue haired, running around with spikes and, ripped up jeans, and telling my parents that everything was messed up and that the government killed Kennedy and that 9/11 was, a hoax and everything else. And my parents would look at me like, would you just shut up and stop dyeing your hair and get a job? But 20 years later, a lot of that stuff has been vindicated and proven to be correct. So given enough time, in the history of the world, freedom tends to be on the increase, at least in this latest iteration of humanity. And so I think it's just the ebb and flow.
Well, and I feel like they do this and they're always trying to spark more shit because it's like an antagonistic older brother almost. That's just like, no, at least that was my experience with my older brother. It was always like, he was always right. Whatever he said was the truth and all that stuff. And it's like, no matter what you do, you just get more and more frustrated. And then it's eventually like all these people are going to, Like, it makes me mad, you know, if I'm as mad as I am, I can't even imagine the anger in the world about this. And like, they're just trying to spark people to do more violent shit, which could be good. I don't know. But then they're in control of everything. So it's like, if they're trying to make shit happen, I don't know.
I honestly think they do it for the ratings. Conflict pulls in the ratings. And nobody's going to watch the news if everything's peaceful.
Well, yeah, I
Life
think
is
that's
good.
something we've seen. CNN ratings go up when there's a Republican president, and Fox News ratings go up when there's a Democratic president. So it's really not that hard to see what's going on that end. As far as sparking conflict, I think that the people who are really pulling the strings would love nothing more than to have civil conflict in the United States and the ensuing balkanization, because it's all about division, and that's how they get their control. I mean, it's no different than an abusive spouse twisting things and gaslighting and creating conflict. And so that's really where we're at. And the problem is that you see people and they're like, well, it's time for, an uprising or whatever. But in the end, I think that's really what the powers that be want to see. They've manipulated events and gotten it to a point where it's like a catch-22 situation for a lot of people. But if you move into some sort of an armed revolt or armed uprising, that will justify further clamping down. So it's the bottom up, top down. Again, you can look at Saul Alinsky's playbook, and you can even look at what happened in Russia during the Russian Revolution. So we've seen this play out throughout history, and we're seeing it again. And it's already a global world war, whether people want to admit it or not. I mean, all this stuff's tied in with Ukraine and everything else, and people are still just being pushed along with these narratives, because that's something that I thought was interesting with a lot of people on the right wing, is that they're very supportive of Ukraine in this situation, and they're being gaslit into that. Well, to me, it's not that simple. And it's hard for me because I have friends that are Ukrainian, and I understand their nationalism involved in the entire thing. But it's nothing simple. The world is run by criminals, and they all lie, and they don't care if they kill us to increase their power. So, yeah.
I have heard it said that the powers that be would literally go as far as to start a global world war in order to remain in power, and I agree.
Well, sure. I mean, I think it's no different, when you're talking about a cornered animal. I think that we've seen a lot of things be exposed about the real power structure behind global government, and they have no interest in giving up that power. So if you're in a situation where they stand to lose it, they're going to do crazy shit to hold on to it. Because what is their other option? I mean, you're talking about treasonous behavior at the highest levels. And the last time I checked, the penalty for that is death. So if someone's choosing between continuing their current power structure and the death penalty, what are they willing to do to keep that? And that makes them dangerous.
That leads back to the point you made about like a peaceful secession, like a splitting too. That is the reason why it probably wouldn't work. It's because the ones that have the power are not going to want to let that go. When you think about it, there's no reason that there would need to be any violence with a situation like that.
Sure.
We can trade with each other, just like two countries trade with each other. We can travel. There would be no need for violence, but you would see it if there was some sort of peaceful secession. And if you really dig into it, it kind of makes sense, because you have really two sides of a coin that are quickly leading to a place where they cannot live with each other anymore. They hate each other. So if that's the case, you divorce, you live your own lives, make it peaceful. The only reason why it wouldn't work is because the people in power wouldn't surrender.
Well, sure. And just throughout the history of the world, that's never happened. So, I mean, again, we can sit here and talk about, kind of what we wish things were. And I think that that's productive. I mean, I've said for years, and I continue to say, that I'm an anarchist. Now, I also recognize, in my opinion, that it's really a utopian ideal. Like, I don't think it's something that's really workable, especially with how people behave. But you have to be constantly trying to increase freedom. So that's the purpose of talking about these ideals and the way we want things to be. But you have to be realistic on some level and understand that, again, the history of the world is violence and slavery.
And then I like the fact that there's so many people willing to sign up to be in the armies that will work, that will do things for the government. Like that's what blows my mind too, is like all those people who showed up in DC, I guess it was probably reserves people or National Guard people eventually, it's like there's no end of people who will fight for the government, whether it comes from a good place or not. I know people sign up from a good place and stuff, but it's like there's just so many humans there's always this percentage of humans that will always be willing to do that, and they will break the oath to the Constitution. They will do whatever the government tells them because they're an army, like they're not. I got yelled at for saying they're brainwashed. They're not brainwashed, but you literally are fighting for something, and they will. And that's what's scary to me, is like that's why an armed uprising seems so scary, because they control all the armies and they have all the guns and they have all the big guns, and it's just...
Well, it's interesting, like with a lot of my friends excuse me, that spent time in Iraq, I think what they would say about that, without putting too many words in their mouth, was that there's a certain amount of that idealism, obviously, when you're young and you go into it, especially back in those days when it was like, oh, we're going to go fight the war on terror. One particular friend of mine, went over there, and he still talks about just how much it hurt him when he realized that the main reason they were there was to guard opium production. And me, back when I was blue-haired, like I knew that's what it was going to be about, that it was always about the opium in Afghanistan. But they're good people, and then they get put into a situation where they're with their brothers in their unit or whatever, and it becomes less about this wider war in the world, and it becomes more about protecting those people you love that you're close to in your own unit, the band of brothers thing. And so again, I only think that's going to go so far. I know that the Department of Defense has moved forward to kind of purge pretty much any free-thinking individuals from the military. And there's a reason why they're doing that. There's a reason why they push forward with these vaccine mandates there, is because they know that anyone who balks at that is unlikely to start shooting American citizens if they're ordered to do so. And so they want people who are real drones and, NPCs running around and just killing indiscriminately whenever they're told to. And so none of this, again, I just cannot sit here and say that this stuff is coincidental anymore. Oh, it's accidental that, you have people quitting the military. No, it's not. They want those people gone. That's why they present them with a choice. That's how you purge society. The great othering, I've called it.
Anyone chime in? Anyone can chime in. So
I haven't done a podcast in a while, so I'm just blah, 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 blah.
No, I know, because I felt, and then as soon as I had asked you, I was like, oh, I bet he hasn't talked publicly about it other than just on Twitter.
Yeah, just Twitter crap.
It's been a while since you guys were on hiatus and stuff. So
no, I appreciate you having me on for sure. It's good for me.
No, that story is good enough to own the fort today. Don't worry about us.
Yeah. I'm not really fine to listen to you rant. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not really a podcaster anyway.
I probably ought to hop off here in about 7 minutes or so anyways. But yeah, that's where I'm at. That's the update. I really appreciate everybody who's been supportive. One thing that's super cool for me to watch is there has been a certain sea change as people have become more supportive of J6ers, which I think is good. And it's not going to be easy moving forward. It's going to be tough. And it's like, at some point I told my attorney just about all of it is that, well, we're going over these issues and everything. And of course I want resolution. I said, nobody wants resolution more than me. But, I don't mean to make a federal case out of it, but I'm not the one who did. So I think a lot of people need to remember that with all this, is that it's just a lot of smoke and mirrors, and a lot of good people have been put in very bad situations as a result of that day. So, go find people who need support. There's still guys that are, stuck in jail and really haven't gotten any due process. We can talk about the violent ones, but I'm talking mainly about non-violent people from that day who are still locked up over a year and a half later. And that's a travesty. So
Ridiculous.
again, stophate.com. If people could go there, there's links to everyone who's been arrested. You can go and read their stories on your own, decide whether or not that's something you want to help. And I know that right now, I mean, gosh, the economy is getting wrecked, so nobody has money. And that's the way they really want to get people, is where they're dependent on the government. And there's only one way to push back against that, and that's to start coming together as people and loving each other.
Amen. And just think of better times when we could write stupid stories about stupid shit.
Right?
Satire. I remember I wrote one article and you guys put it up. I was like, oh yeah. It was fun.
I miss that so much. Like when you were just writing absolute bull crap just to see, if it would hit, throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. And it's like, then even moving forward, where all I really wanted to do was like reverse Borat travel documentaries, where it's stupid Americans in other countries, mainly myself. And then it's just like the next thing I know, they've shut down the world. I'm covering politics. Oh, okay, I'm here, But maybe one of these days we can get back to just writing funny stuff.
Yeah. I'm putting it. It's at stophate.com, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So that's a great way to find different people. I'm listed as a team member there. I know we're going to be releasing some stuff, hopefully in the next couple of days. I'll be putting links up on my Twitter at Sean Witzman. Anybody can follow me, talk smack to me. I probably won't. I don't really respond to people that talk smack, but you can talk smack. And yeah, anything you can do to help, spread this kind of message, because there's a lot of people out here trying to tell it. JD Rivera, and many, many others who continue to speak truth to power.
Amen. So I'm making a post for you right now. Well, yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah. Let me know if you ever want me to come back. We can talk about something less heavy, but I'll keep you updated too. Okay. So just as I run around doing so much, I really appreciate coming on. Thanks, guys, for talking to me.
And nice to meet you, man.
Likewise.
Your weekend.
Later.
Bye.
Best of luck out there.
I need all the help I can get.
Crazy shit, man.
Yeah.
It was so wild running into Sean again, because I knew him on Facebook. Like, I think we met around like 2018 or so. Like, just stupid shit. We had some stupid friends in common I don't like anymore, but me and him never had any problems. And then like fast forward, and then he's a January 6er and like going through, and then I found him again. It was just been wild because he's such a nice, good dude. So, but now we can talk about music if we want.
Yeah, how do you bring it back from there? I don't know.
I appreciate your videos you've been doing, JDP, about like building a song and stuff. I like that, how you've been doing
I'm trying to get better. It's a new thing for me. The thing about, I don't know, when I sit there and write music, I'm there for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. And that's basically what I do in my free time. I don't watch TV very rarely. Whenever I have free time, I come and I create something if me and the wife aren't spending time together after the kids are down. So if I'm there for 2-3 hours, I might as well stream it. So a couple minutes of setup, you talk here and there, and you stream it. And it's kind of a new thing that I do. And maybe I can influence 1 or 2 people to do it. And if I can catch a couple people, that's good enough for me.
Oh, I've been liking it.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I don't really know Hex's process. What's your process, Hex?
My process is that there is none. I just kind of start. I guess my process goes is to start with a small idea, a really simple idea, and try to expand it from there.
Starts with a riff.
Yeah, starts with some simple little riff, then you build off of it.
It's such a talent. You guys are so talented.
I'm moderately talented. I'm trying to build up to. Did you take any like official training? Were you in band in school, Hex? I really can't. This is the first time I'm talking to Hex, so I don't mean to push you aside.
No, go for it. You guys
Hex is my
actually gotta go to the bathroom real quick too. So.
Oh, he's my Twitter BFF. So
yeah,
I got some good questions for you when you come on my stream and we get to talk only about music. But what's your backstory? What's your origin story?
All right. For the most part, I'm self-taught. I did take like legit guitar lessons for like 2 months, but the guy I was getting lessons from kind of pissed me off because he was somebody who kind of made it in the industry. It's just arrogant as fuck, and I hated it. But my junior year of high school, I did play in a jazz band for an extracurricular activity. I learned a fair bit from that.
Would you play in jazz band?
Guitar.
Okay, guitar, yeah.
Yep.
That's a good form of music to kind of get into, though, and start with, because you definitely have to focus more on the feeling than the technical aspect of building a song. And
Right.
as good as you are technically, if your song is missing feeling, it's really not going to be that good.
Right.
Yep. Damn. And then how did you, like, what were your first steps into like engineering your own music at home? Did you download like the free version of Fruit Loops and you were just messing around, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I pirated FL Studio. To be completely and utterly honest, I had my mom's laptop. It was a decent laptop. I just pirated FL Studio and just screwed around until I really got a handle on how production actually works.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get a handle on it. There's so much there.
Yeah, there is a lot that I don't think you ever become a master at really anything, but especially music and art in general.
Yeah, especially doing it in your free time. Like those people that they get to go to school for it and they come out and get a job right into it, and that's all they do for like their entire lives. I can see how they can get like, as good as like a Hans Zimmer, let's say, for an example. But like doing your free time, just trying to catch up. You've got an hour or two here or there to learn whatever you can and produce music. It's a very time consuming hobby.
Yeah. And on top of that, on some days, you just could, just be suffering from writer's block and just like, I don't know what to do. So, sometimes you got to just take a step back, take a break, do something else for a little bit.
Yeah. I'm working. My goal is to get as many guitars on my wall as Forrest Mommy has shoes there in her closet.
Yeah. Going back to your videos about building the songs, I especially appreciate it. So I've been able to read music and play the piano since I was like 6. Now, sitting down and practicing all my life, never been able to do it, right? Like, never been able, like, I was in choir all my life, all this, and I was always like, I wish I could write a song because I know all this stuff about music. I know keys, I know all this stuff, but like I could never write a fucking song to save my life musically. So I appreciate that you're out there doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be the next video I have to do, which I'm already kind of dreading because I'm not much of a video editor, but I'm doing a mix of live streams and edited videos just for the algorithm because the shorter edited ones do better. But yeah, like going into like the simple building blocks you need to do a song, I'm gonna keep it really simple, kind of like a for beginners video. Go through. You need a bass line, you need your drums, and then you need 2 different instruments, one that carries the rhythm and one that has some sort of melodic lead part. And that's really all you need to build out a song. You can make it more complex if you want, but that's the cake. Anything else over that's just the icing. So if you can get the cake good and you don't need the icing, you could still have good cake. And then, once you get good at the cake part, then you can start messing with your icings here and there.
Yeah, my ex, he like grew up. I mean, he was a jazz musician and a jazz composer and like composes all this stuff. Like, and he just like learned it on the fly once we were during our time together, basically. And now he's sold music to some commercials and stuff now already. And I'm always just like, at the time I was like, which I'm not like this anymore. It was a learning process, but I remember, he'd always be practicing music, and as in a relationship, you're like, hello, pay attention to me. So like he was put in my life, I think, to like teach me that lesson. But he would just practice for like hours. And someone just said in the chat about like if you can get high. No, getting high never made me like get more creative with music. We'd sometimes get on, things, but I don't know. I wonder if it really is like in like the difference in your brain. Isn't it like a left right brain thing or something?
I'm not a biologist.
Love it.
It's eating an elephant one piece at a time. Like when we say it starts with a riff, like because most of the music I've written is heavy metal. This is my old band, so like we've got one album we did in the studio. That band ended. A third of that band started a second band. We did another album. That's when I actually started recording music. That was about 10 years ago. But I was a guitar player. That's what I did in the band. I was lead guitar. So I would always initiate the songwriting by just coming up with a riff. And then I would sit down with my drummer, who was also my best friend. And we were very close, but we were also we were good to fight it out. So if he didn't like something about the riff and I thought he was wrong and he thought I was wrong, we can argue for 30 minutes and then reach a conclusion and be like, okay, that sounds good, let's do it, and forget about the argument, and it wouldn't affect us. So I was very lucky in kind of the bandmates that I was with. It was my best friend, two other very close friends that I went to high school with, and then my brother was our front man. So we can really kind of bang anything out if we had a disagreement and just focus on writing the music. But it starts with a riff. You come up with something catchy. You can either build from that as a guitarist. If you come up with a riff for a verse, you want to work on like a pre-chorus and then a chorus if you're going with your standard strong structure. If you didn't want to advance too far into the song, you can sit down with your drummer, your bassist, or your singer and just say, hey, I got this riff. What are you thinking? And then you build it together.
I did have towards the beginning of COVID, I did write, because I was like, we have to write a rock musical or a rock opera about all this shit. And like you could make so many different little songs to piece together about it. And I remember this was the most creative thing I did in probably the whole fucking last 2 years. But I remember I put it on Twitter, which on my old Twitter, so it's gone now and I don't have it on my phone anymore. But I recorded, it was all about the number was at 200,000 deaths. And so like I wrote this whole like kind of death march 200,000 thing. And I sang it. I don't know if you remember that, Hex. That was a long time ago, but I was like,
no, I don't.
I was so proud of myself, but it was silly because the rock opera, you can kind of like be silly about it and like have a silly voice and whatever. And that was fun, but we still got to write all that. David wanted to write some too, but he's going through some shit, so he might be out for a while. Where's Hayden? Hayden's out here in Colorado. I know him. Are you a musician, Hayden? I don't know about that, if he is or not. Is anyone in your family musical as well? Question for both of you.
So my mom and I think some of her siblings played piano growing up, but then I guess they kind of dropped it at some point. And on my father's side, his brother played bass for a little while, but other than that, not really.
For me, kind of. My dad used to mess around on guitar here or there. He didn't play it like a whole lot in front of us growing up, but if somebody brought over a guitar, like he knows how to play it. He was born and grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And he used to hang out at the practices of a band called America. They sang a song called Horse with No Name.
Been through the desert on a horse.
Yes.
No name.
Yes. So like that's kind of, and he used to love the Rolling Stones and a couple other bands. He used to play the Beach Boys all the time in our house, which at the time, growing up, it was like, oh, that's old people music. But when I go back and listen to the Beach Boys now, it's like, man, what like great songwriters they were. Really just great songwriters. So yeah, definitely musical influence. My grandfather was big into orchestral music. So I'm sure there was an influence there as well. But yeah.
That's nice. Yes, I have a lot of people in my family were kind of the same as Hex. Like everyone knew how to read music, everyone knew how to play the piano, but as far as like going anywhere with it, they don't really do much. I do have an uncle, and he's sadly he's dying. He's dying right now from cancer, but he was in a band called Monterey, and he was like, which classic rock is the best. They're like all this older stuff is so good. Like you said, you go back and listen to it, and you're just like, oh, it's so good. The technology was so like, can you imagine recording back then when there was just tape? It wasn't.
Oh no. Well, I would be lost. I would not be able to produce music.
Like, how did Queen make the Bohemian Rhapsody on just fucking tape? Like, can you imagine? Good Lord. Anyway, so my uncle is like, it was a fun band. He looked like Mick Jagger. It was all like long hair and like tight clothes and stuff. But now he's all like, you know, he turned to the Lord afterwards, and he was a nice family man all his life. But I love going back and watching his shit. It's so funny. Oh, that's cool, Hayden. Sorry, I'm catching up on this. Okay, everyone's so talented. I like it.
I didn't catch that last part. Did he say he did a song for Eddie Bravo?
Yep.
I did a track. Oh, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Hayden's cool. He's my friend. He'll come on sometime. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'm quiet. You guys can talk about whatever you want. Oh, Jake, did you? Oh, go ahead.
How was everyone's weekend, I guess? You started to ask me that, but you know.
It's been good. I was down in the forest yesterday, which is nice. Got to my new car is down there right now. I'm still not driving it yet, so I'm excited about that. I have my Subaru Outback, so I'm gonna be a lesbian now. It's official. Let's call it. I'm gonna start calling it the Vag Wagon. Just picking up all the chicks and stuff. Just kidding.
You need like a big custom sticker on the back window.
Vag Wagon. It's gonna be interesting though, because I've driven so I drove like a Jeep Cherokee for a lot of years, and then I've been in a truck now. So no, the Subarus aren't like super low, but it's gonna be a lot lower than I'm used to. So I'm like, it's gonna be interesting going to that. But oh yeah, didn't you write help with Clint's song, JVP? No, yes. I feel like that's how I got connected with you originally, as I had said something about that, and you were like, oh,
yeah, I think so. Yeah. So I after this band, and then after the second one we did, which when I started recording music 10 years ago, I stopped. So I stopped doing music for like a decade and focused on my career, which I needed to do. Met my wife, had my first child, got pregnant with our second one. Life was good. And three things got me back into music. One was one of the old songs that I produced called Freedom, which should be like the Liberty Twitter's heavy metal anthem.
That was the lyrics known as old theme, right?
Yes. So Pete picked up an old song I did, and he the song that he used before, I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was one of his songs because he used to be in a band too. I think he was a frontman of a band, and he used one of his old songs as the intro. If I'm wrong, shoot me, but I'm fairly sure I'm correct. And then I had it cut up already, and I sent it to him. I'm like, hey, if you want to use this, just use it. And he did, like, immediately. And I was like, oh shit, that's cool. And through that, I found out that he used to live like down the street from where I live now, and he would travel back and forth, and he's been a house guest of mine a few times. So that kind of gave me a little bit of confidence. I'm like, oh, maybe the music that I used to produce wasn't, that crappy after all. Maybe it's pretty decent. And then a band called Overkill, which I'm a big fan of, they came out with an album, and they were in their 50s, and their story's pretty incredible. They were an 80s hair metal band who, if you listen to their old albums, they weren't great. Like, producers would tell them, you guys are not good, you just need to quit, and they never did. And like every album they released, they just got better and better and better. And then they released an album in 2019. That's when I started, called Wings of War, and it's the best album with their best song they've ever released, and they're in their mid 50s. And it's like, damn, if I'm in my mid 30s and those guys are in their mid 50s, I've got like 20 years of good music writing I could still be doing. So you had those two things. And then the third item that got me back into it was my brother started this gaming YouTube channel, and he needed me to write an intro for him. So I pulled down the free version of Fruit Loops. I did a quick intro for him, and then that was it. As soon as I did that, I got all back into it. I started upgrading. I got Cubase again, which is a DAW I'm used to. That's where you create the music in. Started spending money on VSTs, and over the last 3 years, little by little, I've just been improving my home studio.
Yeah, because didn't Pete use 2 of your songs at some point?
So Pete's used 3 of my songs, technically 4, because I also did the one with him and Scott when they had a short-lived show, End of the Empire. I did the intro for that too.
Oh, okay.
But with Clint started, and he kind of came out the gates real hot. Pete, I believe Pete had him on first, and
That kind of got him more exposure then.
Yeah, then he got hooked up with Dave and started getting more exposure. But he mentioned something about his intro music on Twitter. It was just a regular tweet, and I was like, I'll do it. And he's like, okay. And then I just took it. I took the song that he had. I didn't necessarily write it, but I did kind of alter it and produce it. The goal was to produce it at a higher quality so he'd use it. But I think I achieved that because he ended up using it. And then he sent me the lyrics that he did, and we kind of messed with it. And that was that story.
Yeah, has he made more rap songs like that? You know,
he did with I think Neocon Remover produced a track with him, and if I'm not mistaken, Patriot J.
Okay,
I think they did a collaboration.
To go back and look for all this stuff, man.
That was a few months back. So,
I'm
not a big hip hop guy.
I mean, like, I like it, but I'm a white girl in Colorado. Of course, I like it. You know, that makes sense. But I always like oh yeah, I am black. I forgot. But my exposure to hip hop was more the underground white people hip hop, anyways, like soul and like all these other people. Where it's more very just lyric, you know, spoken word kind of stuff. And then I got introduced in my older age to like Wu-Tang Clan and stuff like that. And I was like, oh yeah, like it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm an 80s baby, so my sister.
I am too. I'm the same age as you.
Yeah, that's right. So my sister and my uncle were big into, you know, Grandmaster Flash and Sugar Hill Gang, Beastie Boys. So like that stuff I can listen to all day. That 80s freestyle, which isn't technically hip hop, but I would say it kind of falls under that umbrella. So that stuff I love. I love listening to that stuff. And you know, 90s hip hop like Master P.
Nas.
Yeah, I wasn't the biggest Nas fan, but like Master P, Mystical, Juvenile, Ludacris, like that, I used to love jamming out to that. So
Talib Kweli. Which one, Nas? Oh, and Common, like Common. He's hot as fuck too. Oh, he didn't say in here. That is funny that Phil is in our space. And now I don't know if Justin's still here, but I was just talking about choking Justin and Phil, and now I can like flirt with this guy online. Crazy. Such a small world.
Yeah. He's coming down actually to my area in a couple months. I was considering going to see him.
Apparently he was just here and he didn't hit me up. So I'm like, I guess I'm not that big of a Twitter celebrity for him.
I guess
to
not.
Even, like mention that.
Yeah, he rode through Cleveland too. And I just never got around to buying the ticket, so I missed out on that one.
I've been so bad just even looking up concerts anymore because, you know, for so long I wasn't allowed to go, and then like now
they want you to be vaccinated in a lot of venues.
Yeah, they've dropped some of it here, but it's like it just you know, because I had like Red Rocks last year. Last year Red Rocks, they weren't requiring it for part of the summer, and then I think they did once the 500 people or more rule came in that you need to be vaxxed or tested. But like that's always so fun going up to Red Rocks, even though it's fucking expensive. But like it's like it just killed so many vibes, this whole fucking bullshit we've been through. It just like killed my vibes.
I'm so glad I lived in Florida.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, I didn't experience probably half of what you guys did. We still had people masked up here in the car by themselves, which if that's what they want to do, you know, I can't control anybody. But we never really had we had shortages for a little bit. We had I live in a tri-county area, which is South Florida, and down here it's definitely, this is like the one blue area of the state. Everywhere else in Florida is basically red. So you had county ordinances that were a little bit more locked down than like North Florida or Tampa. They were a lot more open, but it was still never as bad as probably what you guys went through.
Yeah, and Colorado wasn't terrible as terrible as some places, but it was fucking stupid still. Oh, Hayden said, okay, so Red Rocks didn't require it. But yeah, like all the other ones, like our indoor venues and all that stuff did for a long time. It's just so dumb.
Yeah, and me and my wife were considering moving to North Carolina, and then this happened, and we were both like, we're staying in Florida.
That's smart.
Yeah, we're staying. We might go more north in Florida, but we're not leaving Florida.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people moving down there, even from Colorado. Like, I made a friend in the Mises caucus out here, and her husband, they're like, yeah, we're out. Bye. We're going to Florida. We're done. So.
That's the one bad thing. I mean, I'm gonna overspend on a house when we buy. I'm hope I don't hope there's an economic crash, but we're kind of waiting for that to happen so so we can pick up a house at a normal price.
At least a plateau
Right.
or something. Like, I mean, it's been crazy like that. All my clients are overpaying for houses, and it kills me because it's so stupid. And
Yeah.
like, money's not even real, you know. Like, and what they're appraising stuff at, like, it's nuts, man.
The value of the houses never truly came down to what they should have been, even after the '08 crash. They were
Right.
still a little bit more inflated than they should have been, and now they're a lot more inflated than they should be.
Yep.
Yeah, and then as soon as like Colorado legalized, and shit just absolutely, because the '08 didn't hit us too terrible. It hit our construction more because then people weren't buying the new houses. But then, man, it just popped off after that legalization. It's still weird and popping off. And then you had, and since '08, because from my research, I found that BlackRock has been buying houses even out here since the '08 crash, even since before, kind of like. So they don't have to shit out here. They like, I'm sure some of these new neighborhoods going up, because I know they did that in Texas, where BlackRock will literally build a whole new build neighborhood. They'll buy them all, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm sure they've done it out here in some places. Like, I found 4,000 houses alone that they own in the Front Range of Colorado, which that's a fucking lot. Like, when we have no inventory, and they're just holding them, and half of them. I mean, I show so many houses that are owned by corporations and stuff, and it's like they've just been holding them vacant. They weren't even renting them out, half of them either. They were just holding them because to drive up the prices and to hold the inventory back. And it's just so fucking messed up because as a free market capitalist, you know, but then they're so involved with the government that you can't like separate it anymore. It's not just a company trying to make money. It's like, it's
fascism.
Yeah.
Textbook definition of fascism.
Because I remember I used to be like, I would hate the people, not hate, but like, you know, you can make money flipping a house and stuff. But then like the people who want to buy the houses to flip are in the same, like, are buying the same stuff for first time home buyers. So then the first time home buyers are beaten out by all these flippers. And then they flip the house and they make it not that much better. And like, everyone's like, I don't want a fucking gray IKEA kitchen. I've seen so many fucking gray IKEA kitchens and flips and stuff, you know, and everyone's like, I would rather pay 50 grand less or just have the option to buy if there is inventory than to buy a flip. Most people want to do it themselves, you know? Like,
yeah.
That's what
if they have the means. Like I'm with you. Like if we're looking at a house, which we will be this year. But if we're looking at a house and there's a house where it's great, but the kitchen's outdated and it needs an update compared to a house that's great and it's like a gray IKEA kitchen, we're probably going to rip it out anyway. So we're going to take the better deal.
Yeah. And some of these flips they did so fast and they're just shitty flips anyways. Like they were just facelifts that were just done hastily because they're making fucking money off of it. But whatever. Yeah. That's how I am. Oh, Hayden. Okay, Hayden. I'll go to some shows with you if you buy. Just kidding. Yeah. Anything else? You guys want to talk about anything else?
Talk about how I broke Twitter a couple days ago.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
That series of tweets blew up. And then I think you got me like 30 followers off of that. I wasn't even asking for a retweet, but I took his thing and I just retweeted. I said, I'd love to see my friend succeed. He's like, follow JVP. And like people started pouring in. I'm like, geez, get the overflow.
Oh God. Yeah, so I mean I explained it in the tweet. Katanji, however the fuck you say her name, she got confirmed. Apparently Tim Scott down in South Carolina, who's a black dude and Republican, he didn't want it. He voted no. Then this retard Gary Chambers basically, without saying it, called him a coon, Uncle Tom, all that. What he specifically said was Tim Scott thinks he knows better than quote unquote the rest of us, the whole quote unquote black community thing, which I'm personally not a fan of. And I saw that, and then the next day I saw some other retard say something similar, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I need to say something. So 20-some tweets later.
Yeah, so did you were just kind of thinking about it and you just wrote it, and because you get that there's a lot of that's been happening too. It's probably not the first time you thought like how they're like, oh, if you're
No,
black, you
yeah,
have
I've
to
seen
think
it. I've
this
seen
way.
that kind of stuff happen. Like many. There have been many other cases of that happening before this, but I don't know. Just for I guess basically the straw that broke the camel's back.
I thought the way you structured it was perfect. That may have been your
Yeah.
best tweet I've ever seen, because you didn't try and hit the character. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like you didn't try and hit the character limit. You're like, okay, I've got this thought. I'm going to break it up into paragraphs, and maybe one tweet will almost hit the limit. One tweet will just be 2 sentences, but everything was broken up into just nice, understandable thoughts that built the story as you went through the thread. So I thought that was perfect.
Yeah, like like some of those tweets in that thread only hit like half the character limit. And it's like, well, that's the complete thought. I'm not gonna continue. I just start another tweet after that. So
yeah, did you write it out first and then copy and paste it, or was it all just
I was gonna do that because at first I thought about posting it later on in the day. I posted it at like 11 o'clock my time on Friday. I was planning on posting it later on, but by the time I got done typing, I'm like, yeah, I just post it now, because I was just doing it within Twitter itself, because now they have the feature on at least the browser where you can basically write your tweet, add another one after that without actually having to post the original tweet, and then you can just post them all at once. They have that now, so I just did that.
Yeah, it was good. You're like, hang on. You're like, remember this. It'll matter later. Like, I like that shit like that, because it's hard. I'll be honest. It's hard for me to read threads half the time because, I'm your typical short attention span person. But the way you the way you wrote it was just perfect. It was beautiful. Yeah. And then it blew up. How many followers did you get from it?
I nearly, who, me or him?
Yeah, you.
I nearly tripled my following from that thread.
Is it still going on? Are people still kind of like retweeting it every now and then?
I muted it, but I think it died down.
Okay. I was gonna look at you.
And and I did get a fair bit of hate for it, which I expected.
Yeah, I saw you go after some of them because they're like, and that one girl literally did. They were like, she literally like explained your point and just did it, or not explained your point, but like was the example of exactly what you were fucking saying.
No, there have been several people who are like that. And just like a half hour ago, someone sent me a DM, said I'm an idiot and to stick the music, then blocked me. And it's like, okay, retard.
Oh, the internet.
I love the insult block because I've gotten a few of those myself, and it's just like, so you're gonna insult me and you won't even let me, there's no rebuttal. There's just no, I'm just gonna insult you and cut. It's kind of weak, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it really is. And then I had some other dude. Maj Toure retweeted me. Did he? He has retweeted me on my old account. I don't know if he retweeted the one I did because
I think he did. He retweeted your thread this time.
He did?
Yeah.
Holy shit! I gotta look. Yeah, I muted it, so I gotta look back. But holy shit! No, but there was another retard who quote tweeted me. He said something like, "The unique black thinker stick is played out," or something. And it's like, okay, all right, I'm gonna just go back to being a retard like you because the stick is played out.
No, it was like literally like, oh, so he pointed out something about how everyone says you have to think a certain way if you're in this, tribe, or if you're black, whatever. But then he just like proved your point, like, oh,
yeah, like I said, yeah, like he wasn't the only one. There were a lot of people who were coming at me, and it's like I literally addressed this in the thread. You literally just proved my point, dumbass.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, you're above 2,000 followers now. I should retweet it again.
Damn, that's crazy. It's the lack of self-awareness to just come at you from a race perspective, because it's like, hey, if like if anybody could speak on this, it's Hex, right? Like if Hex is like, hey, look, I know there's some sort of community where everybody's got to get each other's back no matter what, but I'm gonna stand up and say, well, no, you don't get to speak for me. I'm still an individual. I can speak for myself. Doesn't matter what my race or creed is, my sex doesn't matter. I'm gonna speak for myself. And as soon as you throw that out there, you can see the binary brains start to kind of fizzle out and short circuit because they can't comprehend what's going on. I love it. It's great.
half of them probably didn't. Half of the people who went after you didn't read it. I'm sure they were
There's
just like,
one chick who went after me and literally said she was replying to someone else who commented on her quote tweet of me. She literally said she skimmed through it, and it's like, dumbass.
But I love that you're calling them retards and shit too. It's great.
I started reading it and I liked the first one. I'm like, well, let me just read through it before I like and comment. So I started reading through it, and then like halfway through, there was one, I forget what it was, but it was just like a solid point, like one sentence. I'm like, I like that one. I got all the way through. I'm like, okay, I gotta scroll back up and like all these individual tweets.
Yeah, it was great. Good shit. Well, they are retards, yeah.
You should have been in my house when I was explaining to my wife what Liberty Twitter was. So I'm like, honey, I'm gonna go on a show on Sunday, and I'm like, she's like, what show you going on? So I'm like, geez. I'm like, how do I said it just like this. I looked up, I'm like, how do I even begin to explain what Liberty Twitter is to you? And because she's a normal person, you know. She's if you
normal.
talk to her,
we're not normal. We're not normal. I'm just kidding.
But if you talk to her, she's pretty much on the side of freedom, but she's not like I'm a libertarian or I'm a Republican. She doesn't care. But I started off with saying, how do I start to explain this? I'm like, it's basically a disaster, but there's some good people in the in the space that I like to interact with. So
it is funny trying to explain it. I posted a video because I secretly asked I was like, "Do you ever watch it in my YouTube?" She was like, "No." I was like, "Oh, thanks." Like, if you just some people just aren't into it, like, well, especially like online. He's not online at all, so it's like I can't expect it, but it's good. I might just start talking shit about him now, and then he won't know. No, just kidding. How to describe? It kind of is a hedonistic. Oops, her name is Forest Mommy. I love it though, because even in real life, like girls and boys, everyone calls me Forest Mommy still. I love it. It's my Lady Gaga moment. I just hit 20K. I can't believe that.
Jeez. I'm the low man on a totem pole.
I know, and you have the actual talent. You guys are actually fucking talented, and I'm just a dumb bitch out here. So
no, I like it. I don't want to. A small following is perfect for me. I don't need a big one.
Yeah. It was funny when Sean was talking about earlier, like how he said like the politics. He didn't really change, just that the world has changed around us, and it really is like when I started going off on COVID and people started like liking what I was saying. So like. It really, and I really feel like I didn't change it all. Obviously, I'm alt-right now compared to my old friends have told me I'm alt-right. So whatever, but it is wild how like I didn't think I was the same person. Obviously, the tyranny that was happening did kind of like harden me and like, you know, killed my vibes, like I said. But it's not like I changed it all. And like, so I'm glad people are like, you know, and I know not everyone agrees with everything I say, which is great, but I don't know.
I don't, but it doesn't mean you have to hate somebody. You could still like somebody and disagree with them.
It's not that I don't go on all these other threads and be like, no, you idiot. Like, but maybe like you give what you get too. So if you're not going around like being mean to other people all the time, hopefully it doesn't come back at you so much. But I don't know. Boost it. That's right, Tactical. Number one. No, Tactical is number one. He'll have a show tonight. He'll have a show. He has his show tonight. If anyone's not following, to make it this
time. I forgot about it last week.
I should have messaged you when I remembered and hopped on.
Now he was on your show one time, right? Am I mistaken?
Yeah, he's been on and off. Yeah.
I believe I remember him.
If everyone needs to follow Terribly Tactical, they're not yet, but he started having me on his, and I love him so much. We love to flirt. He flirts with mommy, makes mommy feel good, but we're just kidding. But he's hilarious. And then it's guns, always gun talk and freedom talk and all that. So
I almost want to start a Twitter called Tactical Terrible and be his main competitor.
Be like the dark side of it or something.
Tactically terrible.
If
he has any training, I'm pretty sure I'm more terrible at being tactical than he is.
I love it. Oh, wait. Jacobs. 2020 made people both incredibly insane and incredibly retarded. It really did.
Yeah, it really did.
If you weren't already an NPC, like it fucking woke the rest of them up, or it like woke them up. That's the only thing I would talk to other people about this too. It's like people were receiving transmissions or something because they like were not thinking and they were just repeating and just all this. I had people like literally say, "Oh, you're just listening to someone on YouTube, not," and I'm like, you're just repeating what you just heard someone say on Facebook, that to say that, you know, if someone doesn't believe what you believe, yeah, that they're just listening to someone on YouTube. And it's like, and then just the whole idea of like, if you can't research, you can't seek out information on your own, like how is that an intelligent thing? I'm like, these are all people who went to college, so did they all like just not research shit? Like I didn't understand when researching became a bad thing. I don't know. It was weird.
I try and be more sympathetic, and that's not to say that there aren't enemies out there, and they are, and fortunately, you have to treat an enemy and a threat like an enemy and a threat. But I think, you know, just going back to me being younger, I wasn't as wise as I am now, right? I needed guidance too, so I try and be sympathetic and think, well, there's some bad in there, but there may be some people in there that you can sway and convince and point them in the right direction too. So maybe it's a fool's errand. Maybe I'm being foolish, but I always try and be optimistic and think you can steer people back into the correct direction. Because really, I mean, being you know, I don't know. I don't call myself a libertarian anymore. I don't. But
good call.
It's
right.
It's the way I always looked at it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is something new, but I always looked at it as the anti-ideology, because it said you can't hurt people and you can't take their stuff. Right? That's basically the summarization of it. You can't just punch somebody in the face for no reason. If they attack you, sure, you can defend yourself, but that's it. It's a very simple thing. You can't do these things. Everything else is on the table. So it wasn't like there was, you know, an ideology says you have to do this. You have to do this. This is what you should do. Right. You know, just read any book. So to me, it was always the anti-ideology. It's like, oh, this is what normal people should aspire to be, because it's like, okay, you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, and we're good. You know, whatever you want to do in your own private home is your business, and I don't care. So, and it's that, and I was completely wrong on that. That outlook was completely wrong, because just kind of getting into the party politics, being an early Mises caucus supporter and getting out of that. It's and not to bash them, I hope they win. I really do. But it's definitely an ideology. It's not what I thought it was.
No, that's true. And going back to your thing about
that.
like talking to people, maybe you can bring people back to your side. Also, just talking publicly or loudly about things also helps encourage other people who maybe aren't saying anything to say things too. Like it helps them, because I know that happened on Instagram, because like I started saying shit right away because I was off Facebook, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna say some shit on Instagram, you know, and people were attacking me, like all my old normie friends who were like would joke about spreading, you know, strep throat and stuff at parties. All of a sudden they were all fucking crazy about this shit and attacking me every time I said something. But then I also noticed some of my other older friends were starting to talk more about it too. Like it helped them to like feel more comfortable that, oh, you can say shit about what's going on, because they really abused us. This, like, if you said anything, I mean, do you remember at the very beginning, like if you were anything against the lockdown, it was, oh, you just want to go to Applebee's and get your hair cut. Like just pure abuse the whole fucking time. Like no matter what you said, it was so it just pissed me off. But it made me feel good to see, like, I had friends that were like, even if they weren't super vocal, they did start at least saying stuff about how it was wrong. So that was good.
Yeah. I've reclassified myself as a normie. Happily. I'm not on the right, a left. I'm a normal person again.
But you're like, you're not normie. Like you don't just follow the when I say normie, I feel like it's people who just follow what the media tells them.
Oh no, I'm a base normie.
Yeah. Okay, there you go.
I'm looking to build friends and family. I think that's more important than community. I think the word community, like there's a community for everything, and those people will not get your back when shit gets hot, right? Like your friends and family will. So like that's what I'm looking to build. I think that's what everybody should be looking to build too. Anybody looking to build a community of some sort, yeah, anybody looking to build a community of some sort, it's a mistake. Look to build friends and family.
Yeah. Friends and family is good. The COVID brought me and my family closer together, but now they like me. They didn't like me. They didn't like my free spirit when I like left home young and because I didn't want to go to church and I wanted to have sex. They didn't like that free spirit, but the free spirit during COVID, they were like, yeah, help them too. It's funny. I always laugh because the whole like when families were like apostatizing their family members over COVID stuff and all this. And I'm like, I already been through that with my family once before. Like we reconnected eventually because I was like, wait, you can't like, I knew at some point in my life, I'm like, I can't hold a grudge. You know, family, most people don't know what they don't know and parents do their best, right? Like, so you can't hold a grudge and you have to be good with the family. But I'm like, I literally was like cut off from family before over like way stupider shit. So it was funny how it was coming around now. And I'm like, I haven't brought it up and rubbed it in their face yet, but whatever. One of these days.
Speaking of family, I'm going to fire up the grill and start cooking dinner. It's 4:00 my time. So
hell yeah. That's probably a good spot to end it. You good, Hex?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, JVP.
Thank you. I was so happy to speak to both of you again. A little bit more Hex, just because, like I said, like just having Hex and now Havoc, which I met through Hex as peers, and we get to kind of shoot our music back and forth, and we could be critical behind the scenes of like, oh, this is what I would do, or it's nice to have those kind of musical peers because it's it's hard to find them. It's hard to find people that
you guys should have like a little regular musical podcast.
I'm open.
Yeah,
I'm down.
All right. No. All right. Well, everyone have a good rest of their...
to plug?
Yeah, plug shit. If anyone wants to plug.
It's not much to plug. I released a song recently. It's an orchestral piece, probably the best one I've did. That stuff's hard to get to sound realistic and good. Yes. You can't really replace real players, but that one was pretty tight. I'm happy with it. I have my next release is going to be my first release with a vocalist. I don't want to say who it is, but it's somebody you may or may not have heard of. On Liberty Twitter. It's not anybody super famous, but he's great for the song. It's going to be like an 80s freestyle song. The title is The Freedom Inside My Heart. And it's the lyrics are, it should be a good anthem for Liberty Twitter. So I'm looking forward to finishing that one and getting that released, and just tons of projects I'm working on. And when they're done, I'll get them out to everybody. But that's, if you follow me on anywhere, follow me on Twitter. That's where I have all my links, J_V_P_music.
You Hex.
Hexo_Genesis on Twitter and Hexcelery everywhere else. Y'all know the drill at this point.
Yeah. And if you don't follow me already, well, then you're lost. So you know where I am. Just kidding. All right, cool. Everyone have a good rest of your Sunday.
Peace.
Have a good one.
Peace.